Welcome to the ONSTAGE podcast, where we deep dive into the power of music and entertainment. Welcome, everyone, to another ONSTAGE episode. We have American actor Rollin Jewett, who's a screenwriter and has had a diverse career in writing and show business spanning 3 decades. So he had small roles in films such as The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston, as well as Miami Vice and Unsolved Mysteries. This is going to be interesting. I want to talk to you about that one.
Okay.
Now, so you journeyed to Los Angeles and shifted your focus to screenwriting, and you appeared in the film Laws of Deception as Mr. Farina, a corrupt businessman.
Which I also wrote that script.
Yeah. And another film you were in is American Vampire, which you wrote and starred with Carmen Electra. This is amazing. You've worked with all these people, and also Adam West, like Batman himself. Like, wow, that's amazing. So I want to talk to you before we get into talking about your diverse career and your movies. Can you just start from the beginning? Like, can you give us a starting point as to who is Rollin Jewett is and a reason you went into acting?
Well, I grew up in South Florida. I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I grew up in South Florida, in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. First, through elementary school, I lived in Miami, and then after that, moved to Fort Lauderdale through middle school and high school. And in high school, I was a freshman, and there was auditions for some plays that were going to be going on. I was in the drama class, and I just, did it as a lark. I had always enjoyed characterizations and doing voices and impressions as a young guy, and I'd get a little bit of a kick out of my friends and family. If I could do an impression of a cartoon character or an actor or something like that. Back then, of course, it was like Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant and people like that nobody knows today. But it was a way to get attention, I suppose. So there was an audition in high school for a melodrama, and I auditioned for it, and I got a part in it, and it changed my life. It really, from that moment on, I knew exactly what I wanted to be, and I wanted to be an actor, and I also wanted to write plays and be in films. So that's kind of where it started. And so I did other plays and musicals in high school. And I went to Florida State University. I was a theater major there and did quite a few plays up there as well. Burt Reynolds was one of the people that he was kind of a mentor, because he went to Florida State and started out as a football player there, injured himself, and then got into film. Mm. But he would come back from time to time and speak to us as classes. And he also had a theater in Jupiter, Florida. Now, I never went to this theater, but he would take certain people that showed some potential, and he would take them to his dinner theater, and they would get to work with some famous actors that he knew that he would put in some of his productions.
Wow.
So, when I moved back down to Miami after going to Florida State for a few years, I got my headshots. I was doing plays and immersed myself completely in the whole acting scenario down there. And it was great. If I was an extra, I didn't even mind. I started out as an extra on these sets, and sometimes you would get an upgrade, like on The Bodyguard. I was an extra. I started out as an extra on that film. And luckily, I was wearing a suit that day, and I looked like a news reporter, and they handed me a microphone. And Whitney Houston is having an argument with Kevin Costner, acting. And they come out, and it's at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach. And she comes out, and I'm standing there with a microphone as part of this news crew. And she says, "Why aren't you asking me any questions?" And I said, "Well, I don't have any lines." She said, "Well, make some up. Ask me some questions." So they call action the next time, and I have 20 questions I ask her, and the director liked it, so they kept it in the film, and that's how I wound up in The Bodyguard. but I had done Miami Vice and Unsolved Mysteries already, and quite a few stage productions. But when I moved out to Los Angeles, it was a different story. It was very, very competitive out there as an actor, you know, and I was already 30 years old by the time I moved out there. So I transitioned into screenwriting at that point, and that was a whole other, you know, part of my career.
Wow.
So that's kind of like, you know, in a nutshell, my beginnings.
Quite diverse. Yes. Do you remember what your very first, let's start with stage productions. Do you remember what your very first stage production was?
Yeah, it was a melodrama, which had the villain and they had the hero, and then they had you know, the damsel in distress, and then the family of the damsel in distress. And I played actually the father of the damsel in distress. And I just remember being on stage and having such a wonderful time, and the people were so inclusive and just so friendly and warm and so diverse. There's so many different people in theater. I just fell in love with being on stage and hearing laughter from the audience. I mean, it really is a buzz. You know, you get an electricity flow from the audience. Whatever energy you're giving them, they're giving it back as well. And that was the first play that I did. And then I did, I think I did Midsummer Night's Dream after that, which was, you know, of course, Shakespeare. Fell in love with Shakespeare, read a lot of that. I did Othello later on. I did The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. I did West Side Story, played Riff in that in high school. So those were, you know, that was my beginning in high school, falling in love and just really, really enjoying performing on stage.
And you had a chance to sing too in West Side Story too, right?
Yeah.
What kind of accolades did you get with that?
Well, it was a high school production. You know, I think the audience enjoyed it. I love to sing. I was a terrible dancer. You know, it took a lot of time for me to figure out those moves because it's very complex. And so I was not what I would call a triple threat. You know, I could act and I could sing, but I really couldn't dance. But I did my best and pulled it off, so to speak. But you know, it was just great being in a musical and trying to learn how to dance. And then later on, I did other musicals as well. I was never much of a dancer, but I was always able to somehow pull it off, you know.
Yeah, I was perusing your YouTube channel. Rollin, I gotta say, not only do you have a wonderful vibrato, which you can't learn, you have it or you don't, but when I heard Shallow, the sort of duet you did with Wilma de Ramos, I'm thinking that's Bradley Cooper right there. He sounds like Bradley Cooper. I am impressed, my friend, with your voice. It's amazing.
Thank you. And I try to do lots of different types of songs. I started out kind of doing country songs, and now I've done blues songs. I'm a multi-genre artist, so anything that you throw at me, I'll at least attempt it. I may not succeed as well as I might like, but I love the crooner songs. You know, I put out an album last year with a good friend named Bo Haas, and we each did 7 songs, and it was Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Tony Bennett, Andy Williams, and I did 7 of those songs, and I really enjoyed it, and I think it turned out well. And we've decided to do another. It's called Croonin' and Swoonin', and we've decided to do another one. So keep an eye out for that one. And we just finished another CD with Bo Haas once again, called Broadway Maybes, and it's all Broadway songs. And I got to sing from My Fair Lady. I got to sing On the Street Where You Live, which was very, very high kind of tenor, a little bit stretching my range, but I think it turned out well. So I'm excited that that's going to be released on July 1st.
I'm very impressed with your voice. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe you should learn. I'm thinking would be good to sing. Maybe not with Vilma, whoever, but there's a song from Rent. It's called "The Tango Marine." That would be good for you to do. And
Okay.
also, yeah, and also light my candle. I mean, light my candle specifically for someone in their 20s, but with your voice, I mean, yeah, you could stop ships with that. I'll tell you, that's fantastic. Can I ask you what your motivation was behind writing American Vampire, and how did you get Carmen Electra and Adam West in that movie?
Well, it's interesting because everything that I wrote as a screenwriter early on, I wrote for myself. I wrote for myself to be the lead in it. So when I wrote American Vampire originally, it didn't have a teen protagonist. It had, a 30-year-old sort of nerdy guy who doesn't have many friends, and he invites these vampires into his house because he's lonely, and they wind up taking over. And the next thing there's a lot of problems. His friends are disappearing, and ghouls are showing up, and so I wrote that for myself, and I wound up doing a promotional video that was a music video. And believe it or not, Mark Lindsay of Paul Revere and the Raiders was interested in playing the Van Helsing character. And so we actually did this music video with Mark Lindsay, and he provided a song to do it, and we had some scenes from the film that we wanted to do interspersed in the music video, and we were going to use that as a promotional tool to get funding to do the film. But unfortunately, it just never happened. So after about a year of trying to do that with me as the lead, I decided to switch gears on the script and skew it to a younger demographic, namely teenagers.
Hmm.
And there was a lot more interest, when we got Carmen Electra and Adam West involved. And, I found a producer that was really interested in doing something at that level, which, medium budget, B movie level. But we were able to get some great performances. I mean, Adam West is tremendous. He's the best part of the film, as you can imagine. And Carmen Electra was just kind of starting out at that point. She'd already been with Prince. She'd done some dancing stuff. She'd done a couple of albums, I think, with him. Maybe she had done Singled Out. She took over for Jenny McCarthy on that MTV show. And she was just starting Baywatch, so she was an up-and-comer. And of course, we snatched her up right away. And it worked out great. When they put out the DVD, her face is very prominent on the DVD because she was a hot commodity, and they really wanted to use her as a promotional tool to sell, and it worked out pretty well.
Wow. I hate to ask you, Roland. I heard these rumors. I wasn't sure. In respect to the late Adam West, of course, I heard that he was quite a diva. Like he thought he was Mr. Special. He went around like I was Batman, like I'm Mr. Perfect. He was rude. Was that true?
No, not at all. No, not on our set. I mean, I spent several days with him on our set, and he was just the opposite of that.
Hmm.
He was nice and he was friendly, and I got my pictures taken with him, and we talked, and he told stories, and I got to hold his cue cards, because the words I had written for him it was in a language practically that I had made up on my own. He was this surfer guy, and I just made up these lines just because I really wanted to hear him say this nonsense. And he was a great sport about it. And if you watch the movie, you can tell that he's having a great time with it. And he was great on the set. Everybody loved him, and he was just as friendly as can be. So I don't know where the diva stuff comes from, but it wasn't from our set, that's for sure.
Okay. Sure. So also, yeah, that's quite interesting. Adam West. Were you tempted to go Batman?
I
I
knew
bet he
better
heard it
than
so
to
many
do that,
times.
There were a couple of references, because it was a vampire movie. So there were a couple of
Yeah.
references that I gave him concerning bats. And one he wouldn't say because it was kind of, it was something about I was hang gliding in Costa Rica and I sailed into one, a bat. And that's as close as he ever came to killing a vampire. And I said, and the next line was, ugh, bats, nasty little creatures. And he wouldn't say that line. And I think it's
Wow.
because of the homage to Batman. You know, it was kind of denigrating bats, and I don't think he wanted to do that. So it was a point of honor, I think, and I think he really, loved that role and didn't want to say anything bad about what had become his bread and butter, really. So that was just kind of an interesting little moment,
Yeah, it's funny, but you had the Adam West Batman who spoke just a regular voice, and then when you came up with Michael Keaton, you went, "I'm Batman." Like
Yeah,
whatever became why his voice went, "Hello, I'm Adam West," or "Hi, I'm Batman. I'm Bruce Wayne," to "I'm Batman." Like, I
yeah,
mean, what happened?
and
But
that's what everybody thinks of when they think of Batman is that voice.
were you able to go to the memorial service when he passed away?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but I was invited to Walla Walla, which is where is that? Uh, Idaho, I believe, where he was living at the end. They had a memorial there.
Hmm.
They also had one in Los Angeles, but they had one in Walla Walla. And the guy that was putting it on invited me to that, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. But they had this big clock tower in the center of town, and they had the bat symbol on there, and there was a big parade and stuff. So, they really love him internationally, obviously, but in Walla Walla, they have a day every year that they commemorate him with. And I've always wanted to go, but it's a little bit of a far stretch for me. I live in North Carolina, so it's across the country. But maybe someday, you never know.
I heard that Kevin Costner was a really great singer, and he's also a very kind man inside and outside the camera, if you know what I mean. I mean, behind the camera, in front of the camera. But what
Hmm.
about Whitney Houston? I heard they were. I'm not trying to do any you know, was Whitney Houston nice to work with? Was she nice in person?
I have nothing but good things to say about Whitney Houston because she's responsible for me being in that film and having that role. So had she not said to me, asked me some questions, I could have wound up on the cutting room floor, or I would have just been in the
Mhm.
background as an extra. So, my experience of her was wonderful. She had a big smile. She engaged me. I engaged her. And she was very giving, very generous on the set from what I could see. Kevin, on the other hand, this is nothing to do with him, but we didn't know what kind of a role he was playing. And
Mm.
when you see the movie, you see what kind of character he is. He's very, very stern, very, perceptive. He's looking around because he's her bodyguard, and he has a constant scowl on his face. So, if you're on the set watching him, you see this guy who's like, doesn't look very friendly. So a lot of people were talking on the set about, wow, Kevin's a real jerk or whatever, but then when you look back at the movie, you realize he was acting. He's in character. That's the character he plays, is a suspicious, protective, dominant kind of male who's like ready for anything. And that's what we saw, as actors on the set and extras on the set. But from perception, from an outside perception, it looked like, what's he mad about, but I learned that on sets. You don't engage actors when they're acting. You don't expect them to be friendly or because I've worked with Robert De Niro, I've worked with Ned Beatty and Burt Reynolds and John Travolta, and it's a different thing when they're on the set. You don't talk to them, you don't engage them unless you're rehearsing with them,
Wow.
because they are in character and they
Mm.
really, really, as an actor, I know you really have to focus because there's a lot of money going into these projects. I was on Cape Fear, and that's an expensive production with a lot of big stars. So time is money. It's a cliche, but it's very true on a movie set. So with Robert De Niro, it was the same thing. he played Max Cady, who's a psychopathic killer. And I got to meet him, and I was his double. I was his stand-in, and I was also his makeup double. When he gets burned at the end of that film, the girl Juliette Lewis squirts some lighter fluid in his face and sets him on fire.
Wow.
I did the makeup guinea pig. I was a guinea pig for the makeup on that. And when they finished with me after about 4 hours of making my face up, he walks in, and of course it's going to be done on him soon. So he wants to see what it looks like. He wants to make changes or all that stuff. And he was all business, man. I could have been a piece of meat. He was just so focused on his work. And same thing on set. Just absolute laser focus on his character and what he's doing and what's going on in the scene. And there's no fooling around.
Okay. So you're saying that Robert De Niro and John Travolta, don't bother them, don't talk to them because they're into character. Now, your small role as Mr. Farina, corrupt businessman, same thing with you. They can't bother you because you're in character. See? It goes both ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I did the scene of Mr. Farina with, in that particular scene, with C. Thomas Howell, if you're familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
Pony Boy and The Outsiders. He's done a lot of stuff. And John Landis, the famous director, was the judge in the scene. And Joey Travolta, John's brother, actually directed that film. And it was a courtroom scene. So, it's a serious scene. So people, they rehearse and they do the camera setup and you know what's happening all the time, but you're not fooling around or joking around too much on the set. To be honest. Now, when you get off the set, you go back to craft services and, have a coffee and a donut, or you're in your trailer or whatever, it's a different story. But when you're in character and trying to remember your lines again, also, you don't need the distractions of somebody saying, "Hey, can you get a picture? And what was it like to be, and staying alive or whatever?" You know what I mean?
How much was Mr. Farina in Rollin Jewett?
I'd say 0%. He's just a little character that I wrote for myself so I could be in that movie. I had wanted to be the star of the film, which C. Thomas Howell got that role because he's a name, and he did very, very well. I mean, I was really happy with his performance, and in the end, I think he did a great job, and I'm glad that he did it. But the little role that I did, I'm just this corrupt guy who's kind of, he's my attorney, and I'm trying to convince him he's got to get me off the hook no matter what. And I'm a kind of a mafia guy, a little bit of a wise guy. So that's the character that I'm playing in that. So, and I have zero wise guy in me. So it's just an acting role, It was fun though.
It's just an acting role, but it actually gives you a lot of accolades. People say, "We love it." Oh, your family's like, "Stay away from Rollin. He's just mean." What do you think of method acting? What prevents you from taking Mr. Farina or any other evil guy you've taken home with you?
Perhaps if it was a larger role, it would be something that I would live for a few days or a few weeks or whatever. But the fact that it was 3 or 4 lines, it's not something that I would actually go into method acting with. There have been some plays where you do the play and you've spent weeks, maybe months rehearsing the play, and you do the play maybe for a couple of months too, and then it's hard to shake that character after a while, especially if you go from one play to the next. Now, I remember one situation where I was doing a play it was a comedy, and I played this character, Felix. He was like kind of a nerd. And then the next play that I did, which was started immediately after that with rehearsals, I was this, I guess you call him a womanizer. And I had to go from a nerd, kind of like, a very intellectual a professor type of character into this rogue, basically. So that was a difficult transition, and I didn't have a lot of time. But as you're rehearsing, slowly the character finds its voice, and you find its heart and its soul, and that's what makes you be able to embody that character. But yeah, that's the most difficult transition I ever had to make acting wise. Usually you have a couple of weeks, maybe, or months between jobs, but that one was one after the other. They're a little tough.
Are there characters that you will not play? For instance, a serial killer or a sexual pervert, or no?
Not really. I would find those to be very challenging. I like
Wow.
the challenge. I like the challenge of that. As long as it's, the film is done in good taste and there's a professional component to it, in terms of the director, the writing, my fellow actors, and it's not an exploitation type of thing. I don't think I would turn something like that down.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've played lots of different types of characters, from
Mm,
womanizers to nerds to pirates
mm,
to gang members, if you
mm.
can imagine that. Lots of different things. The more far away the character is from me, I think the more I enjoy it, finding that character.
What character in all your career do you identify with?
Um, that's a tough one. It would probably be somewhere between the intellectual and the womanizer.
Okay. That's awesome.
Somewhere, some balance between those two. If I'm
That's
to be
amazing.
perfectly honest.
Now, I know someone who actually knew Robert Stack, and I want to ask you about appearing in your uncredited role as Deborah Poe's boyfriend. Number one, did you get a chance to meet Robert at all? Or number two, how do they audition for these without even getting a chance to say hello to Robert Stack himself?
Yeah, that's disappointing. But Robert Stack's parts are filmed in Los Angeles. I was in Miami at the time, and he's on a set and it's closed, and nobody who's doing the reenactments really gets
Mm.
to meet him, because it's kind of a separate thing. So unfortunately, I never did get to meet Robert Stack. But the
Oh.
interesting story about being on Unsolved Mysteries is that, first of all, it's still unsolved. A girl disappeared from Circle K in Orlando, Florida, and I
Mm,
played the boyfriend of the girl that disappeared, who was kind of the last person to see her.
mm,
So the police, of course, interviewed me. The fake police, and I'm the fake boyfriend. They
mhm.
interviewed me on at the convenience store, and I tried to make him look as guilty as possible, but tried to make him try to act innocent. If you can, I wanted him to be sort of, like you couldn't tell whether he was shifty or whether he was on the level. So that was a fun little role that I got to do in that one. And you never know how those things are going to turn out. But I was excited to be on Unsolved Mysteries, and especially when Robert Stack was hosting it. So it worked out pretty well. I
Wow,
actually
that
got my Screen Actors Guild card on that shoot.
mhm. Screen Actors Guild. Yeah, I want to ask you: did the AFTRA and SAG strike affect you at all?
No, because I really haven't acted. I mean, I gave up acting pretty much in, I'd say, about 2000, 2001. Uh, After I moved to Los Angeles, as I said, it was so competitive out there that I turned to writing. And ever since then, I really have focused more on the writing, and haven't acted in many years. So that didn't really affect me at all.
Okay.
I'd love to do something again someday. Maybe when I'm older, I can do King Lear or something like that. Go a
Yeah,
bit
I
wild.
yeah, I heard that you did a lot of stand-ins for some movies as well.
Well, yeah, I was Robert De Niro's stand-in on Cape Fear, and I was John Travolta's stand-in on a movie, very little known movie called Chains of Gold. It was sort of in between, is it like his down period, I guess you would call it, between Urban Cowboy, which
Hmm.
was after Grease and Saturday Night Fever. That was a big hit, and then he had kind of a slump, and before Pulp Fiction catapulted him once again into the limelight. So it was kind of it was a, he plays a social worker in that film, and there's a lot of crackheads down in Miami, and there's a drug ring with a drug lord played by Benjamin Bratt, and Joey Lawrence is in it as well. And Travolta tries to get to the drug lord through young Joey Lawrence, who has been sort of brought into the gang to sell drugs in the school. So I spent about a month on that set with John, and as I said, he was a great guy. He was a lot of fun, and he he just made the shoot very very easy for everybody. And as I said, the movie wasn't very popular. It wasn't a big success or anything like that. But I was in awe. I was awestruck by being with Mr. Travolta. Because I grew up in the late '70s, early '80s with Saturday Night Fever and Grease. Those were the films that I really appreciated, and his performances I thought were outstanding. And just to be on the set with him was a thrill.
Yeah, but also you forgot when 100 Lives of Blackjack Savage as well. That was quite an interesting. That's not a memorable film, I'll tell you.
That was a TV series that they filmed down there in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So I was a stand-in for. Goodness gracious, I can't remember the guy's name now. He was on Hardcastle and McCormick, but I cannot remember his name. It only lasted half a season, so no harm done. But I was also a stand-in for Stephen Bauer on a TV
Wow.
series called Wise Guy,
Hmm.
which Ken Wall began in, and then Ken Wall dropped out, and Stephen Bauer took over the character, and I was his stand-in on that for a little while. So it was great. I would do anything on a set. I'd bring people coffee. I didn't care. I just loved being on a film set. It's what I always wanted to do with my life. That and music. Those are the two things and writing. So, all right, three things. Okay. And poetry and photography. And all right, five things. Never mind.
Wow.
You know what I
Wow.
mean.
Wow. How do
Just
you
a
do all
lot.
this and manage your mental health, my friend?
What mental health? I have no mental health. I put everything into what I do. I'm always creating, and I always have different ideas for different things that I want to do. And it's been a great ride. It's not over yet. I got a movie coming out that I wrote just recently. It's called Daylight to Dark, and it's a vampire western. So we're sticking with the vampire theme on this one, but I always wanted to write a western. So I was approached by a couple of these two directors, Kenny Scott Guffey and Jake C.
Hmm.
Young. And Jake, I swear, you look at Jake, and he's an actor, and he's also a director, and
Wow.
you'd swear he's Clint Eastwood's son.
Oh,
And
wow.
he plays a character that we created. He's a
Amazing.
vampire hunter. His name is Helsing, and he's got the whole cowboy thing going on and the squint, and it's just been a lot of fun. And we got Tuesday Night from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. She's got a small role in the film. She plays a vampire queen, and she's just awesome. She's also doing a couple of songs for the soundtrack, which is incredible as well. So that's finished filming. All principal photography is done. There's a couple more scenes that we're going to do at a horror convention that I've been invited to be a guest speaker at, called CreepyCon in
Oh,
Knoxville,
wow.
Tennessee, in August. So we're going to do a couple pickup shots there because a couple of scenes take place at a horror con. And then we'll finish it, and hopefully it'll be out by Halloween is what we're planning.
Have you ever thought of writing an American Vampire sequel and have Carmen Electra and the other actors in there, or no?
I wrote one, actually. I wrote a sequel to it, and couldn't get it made for whatever reason. So this actually, Daylight to Dark, has a couple of the same characters in it from American Vampire. It takes place in that same universe. So the character named Bogey, who was an American vampire, who was the best friend of the teen protagonist, is also in this film. You're talking about 25, 26 years later. We got a hold of him and said, would you be interested in playing the same character 25 years later? And he said, yeah. So I wrote a scene for him, and he's in it. And then there's another guy that played a psychic, and he's one of my best friends. His name is Victor Pansarev. He's going to be doing a short, small scene in that as well. So it's kind of fun to have that kind of full circle moment with this film. And the two guys, Kenny and Jake, they're big fans of American Vampire, and we became friends on Facebook because of that film. So to have them so respectful and to ask me and invite me to be involved in this movie that they want to do, it was just very gratifying. So I'm really excited about it.
Sounds great. I can imagine what's going through your head right now. It's, got to do this, got to do this, I got to prepare for this. Blah, blah, blah. Being an actor, I feel is like a wonderful thing. But I've spoken to many actors and actresses, and they say not all the time.
Well, there's if you're not working, then there's a lot of downtime, which is why I became a writer, because sometimes you never know when your next job is going to come up. You're constantly auditioning, but you might audition 20 times and not get anything. Then again, you might be working all the time. So I decided to write as a way to work out in a way, because you're creating characters through your writing, and it's psychology. You're using your psychology to create these characters, and you have to know everything about their motivations, why they do the things that they do, their desires, what they want to accomplish. And it was a great way for me to sort of continue to act even when I wasn't acting. So I think that's a big part of why, I started to write.
That's amazing. Now, I told someone that I was going to be interviewing Rollin Jewett. I said, you mean the actor and the singer? Yep. So, well, he was on Jeopardy. And I'm like, he was? No, he wasn't. I checked. I said, oh, my God, he was on Jeopardy. Can you tell me what possessed you to be on Jeopardy and what Alex Trebek was like?
Jeopardy was a lifelong dream for me. My family, my brothers and I, we watched Jeopardy religiously in the 60s and 70s. I hate to say I'm that old, but when I started watching Jeopardy, Art Fleming was the host. And then Alex Trebek, of course, took over for Art. So, but we used to watch it, and we actually had a little board game, the Jeopardy board game that we would play as a family. I come from a family of kind of like, semi-nerds. So I always really wanted to be on Jeopardy, and it was a dream. I went and I auditioned for it. You have to take a questionnaire, so you have to get, I think, at least 48 out of 50 questions right in order to go to the next level. So I was living in Los Angeles, which, I was in Sherman Oaks, which is the valley, and I'm only about a half an hour away from Culver City, where Sony Studios is. So I got it in my head that I was going to go and try to get on the show. So I went there one time and I failed. I didn't get on, didn't pass the test. And then about a year later, I tried again. And as I'm going through all the questions, I'm like, oh my God, I know these. This is great. And I felt really confident. And I wound up getting on to the next level, which was a mock show. So you get up there and it's just like the real show. Alex isn't there, but the real, they're asking you questions as though you're on the show. And I did pretty well on that. And then they said, well, we'll be in touch, in the next 6 months, probably. It could be up to a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, great, I'm in. They're going to call me at some point. Now I have all this time to study. So I had these World Book encyclopedias, and I started with A. And I got to about G, the middle of G. I'm not kidding. I'm looking through these World Book, page by page to prepare for this. And I get to about the middle of G and I get this phone call and they say, we had somebody drop out. This is only about literally 2-3 weeks later. And I'm expecting I got months to prepare, right? And they said, would you like to come down tomorrow because you're local? We'll put you on the show. And I had kind of a feeling about it. Well, I'm not really prepared to where I want to be, but I don't know if I'll ever get another chance. So I went ahead and I went down there and I did the show. And Alex was sick as a dog that day. He was sniffling and his eyes were red. But what a trooper! I mean, the guy you would never know it. And when I see the show, I was like, you could never tell that he was sick that day. But, I got on the show, and for about the first 5 minutes of the show, I've got this clicker, and I've been practicing at home with a ballpoint pen, clicking up and down, watching the show, answering as I'm going along on the show. And apparently my clicker, I'm clicking in too soon for the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the show, and I get locked out. I heard about that. And so I don't get to answer any questions for about the first 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm like 0 points, it's so embarrassing. But finally, I start getting on the board and start answering questions and stuff. So, I didn't win. I came in 3rd place. I'm a little bit of a nerd, but, I was playing against mega nerds. One guy was worked in a bookstore for the last several years. The other guy's a professor. The guy that won has already won 3 or 4 games. So, I didn't really expect to win, but just being on it and doing as well as I did, I was very pleased. And meeting Alex, of course, getting my picture with him.
What charity were you playing for? Mind me asking?
No, I wasn't a celebrity. I'm not a celebrity. So I was just a regular contestant.
Really?
Yeah. Just a writer from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Rollin Jewett, just a regular guy.
That's amazing.
I still am.
So now, as a singer-songwriter, what themes inspire your music? Like, for instance, I know Fly Me to the Moon is an excellent cover, and The Shadow of Your Smile. Like, you got a wonderful voice, man. You should have pursued that, become an opera singer. Ladies and gentlemen, Rollin Jewett. Nessun Dorma, why not? I think you could do it.
Well, the crooning stuff is relatively new. I didn't even know if I could do that or not. But my good friend Bo Haas was doing he was going to do this crooners and swooners, and he just reached out to me and said, "Would you like to do this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if I can." I said, "I've never tried to do Frank Sinatra or Nat King Cole, except in the shower, or in my car. But I had grown up listening to those people's music, and I wanted to try. So, I gave it my best shot, and I think it turned out pretty well. So, it's one of those things that if I had a parallel life, I would love to have been a crooner, and followed that, like a Michael Bublé or a Harry Connick Jr.
Oh, yeah.
I love that music. I absolutely adore it. And, it's timeless, in my opinion. And not that many people do it anymore. But I mostly write original songs, and that's mostly what I've recorded. So I have country songs that I've done, pop songs and alternative and rock. I've even done a blues song. I've done a Christian song. So I'm all over the map as far as what I do sing and what I write. And it's it's like writing a story, or it's like writing a poem or a play. It's whatever inspires me at that moment. Uh,
Hmm.
I just get it down on paper, and I don't know where it comes from or why it came to me at that particular moment, but it must be something in the ether that is coming through me at that point and wants to express itself. So that's why I do so many different things, poetry and screenwriting, and I write plays as well. I just
Hmm.
had a play that closed today, in fact, in Ontario, Canada, called Our Little Secret.
I'm from Toronto.
Yeah, and then I have another play that I wrote that's going to be in Silver Spring, Maryland, called Buzzkill.
Nice.
So I'm doing those too. So, I'm a little bit of a schizophrenic, I guess. I like creating characters. I like to do different things and express myself in
Hmm.
different ways, in different forms. And I write short stories, a lot of horror. So whatever it is that strikes me at that moment, that's what's going to come out.
So you turn your poems into songs, I guess, or are your lyrics? Well, lyrics are more like poems, sort of.
Yeah, there have been a couple of songs that I've made from poems, but typically my poems are a different kind of situation. They don't rhyme a lot of the time. Some of them do, but it's a different form of expression for me. A lot of times, you see my guitar behind me.
Hmm.
A lot of times when I write a song, I just basically pick up the guitar and I strum different chord progressions until something comes to me. Or I could just be out, driving around in my car and a lyric will flash into my head and I'll say, oh, that sounds like something. And I'll
Hmm.
develop it and it'll either take or it won't. So it can happen at any time and in any form. But I love just messing around with guitar and doing different things. So I never know what's going to come out.
Oh yeah, I've spoken to a lot of musicians. That's their songwriting process. Everyone has the same. The lyric will come to them. They'll be outside taking a walk. They'll look at the sun and say, "Hey, there's a song in that," or and it comes up with some really good song. Or maybe, like for instance, if you're familiar with Dan Reynolds, who's the lead singer of Imagine Dragons, but there's a song called "Wrecked," and he wrote that of his feeling because his brother's wife passed away of cancer, so he wrote a song called "Wrecked," and that song is about her. So, would you say that your songs are from life experience?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. I just recorded a song last year called "Let It Go to God,"
Mm,
which I wrote when I was kind of in a very sort of a down period, and it was a very meaningful lyric for me because I was questioning a lot of things at that time, and it was an easy song to write. And usually, the best songs are the easiest to write; they just flow through you. So I couldn't sleep because this lyrics just kept coming into my head. Let go and let it go to God. I went down to my basement and no, my garage, picked up the guitar and just started strumming, and it just flowed out of me all the things that I was feeling at that moment, and you know the the music worked with the lyrics really well. So it was an easy process to write that song. And then there's another song that I wrote for my wife many years
mm.
ago called Arizona Sun. She's from Arizona, and it was um, it was sort of dedicated to her. And it was another one that probably took me half an hour to write because some of them are just like that. You're feeling a certain way, and the words just flow out of you, and
Mm.
it all makes sense, and the music and the words go together perfectly. And then other songs, you spend weeks on, and you can't get anywhere with them. So you have to discard them. So I've probably got 100 songs, and maybe 20 I would want to record. 25, something like that. The others are just sort of exercises. They might be pretty good, but are they good enough for you to really want to put out there as something that you know represents you? maybe not. This
What if?
song
Well,
that I have, I'm releasing a
yeah.
song this week called "Internet Girl"
Oh
that I
wow.
wrote. Yeah, it's kind of based on the movie Her, and just saw a movie the other day called Ex Machina. It's
Mm-hmm. Sheena, yeah.
people meet online or whatever, or everything's becoming AI oriented,
Hmm.
and I just wonder what the future is going to be for courtship and relationships and love and all that stuff. It seems to all emanate now from the internet, the dating sites and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of it's a silly, fun song, but it also has some social commentary about what's happening today with the dating situation and romance.
I don't know if you saw the Barbie movie, but it's basically the song "What Was I Made For," which there's a video sung by Billie Eilish, and that's a beautiful song. But her brother Phineas O'Donnell wrote it about her. So when you hear the song, people don't know that they're watching Barbie sing "What Was I Made For," but basically, the song's written about her. But it's a great song. So, world-renowned singer-songwriter. Well, I wouldn't say he's a singer-songwriter, pianist, whatever. David Foster came to you and said, "Okay, Mr. Jewett, I have this. I want you to write this soundtrack to this movie." What's your approach to that?
Well, have to see the movie first, of course, and then probably just get into the minds of the characters that are in the film. You have to have a psychological approach and an emotional approach, even more so than the psychological. But I think when I was an actor, I started with the psychology of the character before I got
Mhm,
into the emotion of the character. So I would
mhm,
probably start with the psychology of whatever I'm watching and the characters that I'm seeing, and the
mhm.
theme of the film itself, because the theme is the most important thing about a film in many, many cases. And then I'd probably just start writing lyrics and fooling around with guitar and see what comes out. But I would first immerse myself into the world of the script, the characters, um, what the ideas are from the director's point of view, and go from there.
Oh yeah, that's a great answer. I love that answer. Is there how do you stay creatively motivated to continue? You just don't want to wake up in the morning and say, "Okay, I give up. I want to do something totally different."
Now that's a really good question there. How do you stay motivated? Um, well, I think in my case, as long as I have ideas that come to me and something that I want to say, uh, and something that I think is worthwhile and worth saying. And when I say that, I don't just mean from a point of view of having a message, because a message is one thing, but entertainment is another as well. So my whole focus my whole life has been really on entertaining people. Um, so I love to make people laugh. I write a lot of comedy. I do
Mm,
write some horror, but even in my horror, there's typically a comic element there because I find it very hard to just write seriously. So you're going to break up some of the conflict and some of the gravitas with a joke every now and then. But entertaining people is really what I want to do. I just consider myself an entertainer, whether it's writing a script or a play or a song. I really just want people to listen to it or watch it or read it and be entertained and maybe laugh and get away from some of their troubles. It's difficult times we're living in. Nobody needs to tell you that, but it's nice to have an escape. And this play that was going on today and this weekend in Ontario, Canada,
mhm.
Our Little Secret. I grew up with Neil Simon, watching those types of plays, and
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
Come Blow Your Horn and Star Spangled Girl, The Goodbye Girl, Barefoot
Wow.
New York, Woody Allen films,
Amazing.
and I love to laugh. And you don't
Mhm.
see many comedies these days, unfortunately, because everybody's afraid of offending everybody else.
Mhm.
So it was nice that they chose this play of mine, which is a silly comedy, but it's very funny but it's lighthearted. So people that go to see it are just going to enjoy sitting back and laughing maybe for an hour or two. And to me, that means everything. You know, if you've crafted a perfectly timed joke and the joke goes over and people laugh just where you want them to, there's nothing more gratifying than that, and seeing people enjoy themselves. So I heard that the people really enjoyed this play over the weekend, and I'm just very pleased by that.
Oh yeah, I really don't think Seinfeld could be made today. Everyone's so offended. I
There's
don't.
so
I
many things that
definitely,
can be made today, right?
yeah, definitely. All in the Family can't be made today. Today, Hogan's
I don't think
Heroes,
that
all
people
those funny films
show
in the
reruns of that kind of stuff anymore, do they?
No, you won't get anything like Seinfeld, or whatever, because everyone's so afraid of it, of offending people. Like, Seinfeld, and how they made fun of, homosexuals and transgender. You can't do that now, and you
Right.
shouldn't. But everything's is totally different now.
Yeah.
Uh, what do you think is your favorite aspect of being a multi-talented artist?
The diversity of what I do. Um, the reason I became an actor is because I really couldn't see myself doing one thing my whole life, like being a businessman or a doctor or a lawyer or something like
Hmm.
that. I really don't have that kind of steadfastness. I get bored very easily. So I thought by being an actor, I could live multiple lives and have multiple different types of experiences. And it's true, because if you're doing a play or a movie, you do that for that time, and then it's over, and then you move on to the next thing that you do, and you're with a whole different group of people, a different director, different scenario, different writer, and it's just it's like live experiencing multiple lives. So the same thing with writing. When I'm writing, I'm in a whole different world. It's not the world that I live in normally. It's a place that
Hmm.
I go to. Just when I'm acting, there are places that I go to in my own mind where
Mm.
I create this character that has never been seen before. Or same thing with writing. You write something, and that maybe that character might be have a dimension of another character, but
Mm.
it's a blank page, and you're the one that's creating it. So whatever you put on the page, that's what's there, and it's never been there before. So I love creating new things, that haven't been uh, in existence before I created them. That's what
So,
keeps me motivated, I think, more than anything. Just
yeah.
having something new to show.
Do you have any dream collaborations you love to pursue, whether it's music or acting or writing?
Wow. Paul McCartney, yeah, sure, I'd love to write something with him. Justin Timberlake,
Nice.
Steven Spielberg. I'm here,
Taylor,
guys.
Taylor.
If you're interested in collaboration, I'm open. I'm open for that. In reality, getting back to Earth here, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm open to a lot of different things, and I do get approached quite often to collaborate on things, and that's really great, because I don't
Mm.
always have to initiate the project. Some people initiate that, and they reach out to me, like with some of the musical stuff that I'm doing now, and with this movie that's coming out. I didn't initiate those projects. I was asked to be part of it,
Mm.
and to contribute. And I wish that I had collaborated with more people earlier in my career. I always had this feeling that I have to do it all myself, and it's lonely. It's difficult. You spend hours and hours at the typewriter or the word processor, or and you're by yourself. Maybe you're listening to music. Maybe you're working through the night, but you're not collaborating necessarily. You're doing it all yourself, and then when it's finished, you're the one that has to get it all out there.
Mm.
For people
It's
to
a lot of
see.
work.
It's a lot of work, yeah. And when you collaborate with somebody, then you share that, and you don't have to do everything. If you get tired or you hit a brick wall, then that other person can step in, or those other people can step in and sort of pull you through that phase until you get where you want to go. Whatever project you're working on comes to fruition. And I think it's a great way to go, because you wind up inspiring one another. Film is a collaborative art. The stage is a collaborative place, writing plays, and music is very collaborative as well. So I'm in a phase now where I'm collaborating a lot, and I love it, because it's not all me, and it's fun doing stuff and creating stuff with different people, because it's just it expands you. It makes you see things differently from another point of view, because you have to cooperate with other people, and so it's very gratifying. I love it.
Yeah, I would imagine, being in your position, how much you love it. Not only that, you got a chance to work with Robert De Niro. Hey, hey,
You're talking to me. Hey, you're talking
yeah,
to me.
talking to me.
Nobody else you're talking. You're talking to me. Yeah. And John
Were there?
Travolta. These are my heroes. These are the people I grew up emulating and
Yeah.
just loving. So to work with those people was incredible. Adam West, my first hero. Batman. I grew up in the '60s watching Bam, Pow, Biff, Bang. To work with him and to listen to his voice, just, hi, how are you today?
Yeah.
It's just, these are dreams come true. So I'm very, very lucky and very blessed, and I count my blessings every day for the life that I've had, and the things I've been able to do, and that other people like to hear about them is gravy on the cake. I think I mixed my metaphor there, but I kind of like that. Gravy on the cake. You ever had gravy on your cake? No, I don't think so. Work with me here, Chris. Work with me.
I'm Batman. So I'm going to ask you an off-the-wall question. So if you could time travel to any era, where would you go?
Oh, I love the 30s and the 40s.
Good
Gangster
answer.
times. I just love, and the 20s too. The flappers, the gangsters, the way that people talked back then, the style, the clothing. Oh my God! I mean, you didn't walk out of your house back in those days unless you were dressed to the nines. And people like Jimmy Cagney and Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
Those types of movies that those guys did. I watched those religiously, and I love that style of those days. I don't think there was a better time as far as
Yeah, it would be like this.
how people dressed.
It would be like the black hat, and then I'd be
Yeah,
wearing
there you go. See, you're styling too, man. You got it going on.
There you go. I'm going to wear this the rest of the interview, because I
I
was
have
looking
a
at this.
hat just like that. I
Fly
wore
Me,
it when I did
Fly Me,
Fly Me to
yeah,
the Moon. Yeah,
Star
exactly.
Trek, when they went back to, yeah.
Yeah, so I wore that hat for Fly Me to the Moon, and then I wore a cowboy hat for Shallow. So see, I'm still acting. I'm still playing characters.
It is. I was looking at your Fly Me to the Moon duet you did cover with Vilma de Remos, and you got the suit, and it's dark in the background is the moon. And I'm thinking, wow, you look more like a 40s kind of Casablanca kind of Bogart type character, And I know I have pictures of my dad back then, and he's got the hair, the hat, the suit. But basically, you can't, you know, you don't have that anymore. The style is always like flowery Hawaiian shirts and everything. No offense, of course, but you know.
This is not a Hawaiian shirt, okay? First of all, it's a long sleeve.
Hey.
It is somewhat floral, though.
Yeah, this is a really
But
fun
yeah,
interview.
that style is not to be duplicated, and I still watch movies like that from that day. And you know, if I could go back to any time, getting back to your question, that would probably be the time.
Well, with me, I'd want to go back biblical times, and then I can meet Jesus and find out exactly what he meant by this scripture, that scripture, so I get a true spiritual mind on that. But if not, I would love to go back to the early 70s, like late 60s, early 70s, because that was where there were no cell phones, no internet. People were literally talking to each other. People were playing outside. And when I travel on the subway, they're all like, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody's looking up from their device.
All the time. And I'm just sitting, like I have an iPhone, but I'm not taking it out and looking at it. I'm just looking at everyone.
You seem like you might be a bit of a people watcher, you know, because you seem like an observant person, and you probably want to see
Yeah.
what's going around. Now, I'm a people watcher as well, and I love observing my surroundings and watching interactions of people. But it does get boring today because you're right, everybody's in their phone and nobody's interacting. So
Mhm.
I think it's people watching isn't what it used to be. Would you
That's
know, attest to
amazing.
that?
Yeah.
Would you attest to that? I mean, I'm not on subway because I live in North Carolina, but where do you live in North Carolina or New York, or where are you?
No, I live in Toronto, Canada. That's why you mentioned Ontario, Canada. I'm in Toronto.
Oh, okay. Oh, you could have gone to see my play. It was at the Theater Woodstock. You ever heard of that? Theater Woodstock in Ontario?
Yeah, yeah. People certainly know who you are. That's why when they said, you know, that he was in Jeopardy. No, he wasn't. You know, why would he be in Jeopardy? You know, that's funny. But give us a word of advice before we end the stream. Give us a word of advice to people who are up and coming Rollin Jewetts and singer-songwriters, and you can even do it in the style of Robert De Niro if you wanted to.
Oh, I don't know if I would do that, but
That's okay. That's okay. So anything for my audience out there, people who really who are actually wanting to get in acting or singing, what would you tell them?
I would say find your voice. You know, find your path and follow it. Don't necessarily be like me. Don't follow my path because I'm all over the place, and I don't think that's worked for me as well as it could have. Yeah, I'm proud of the body of work that I have, and it's all over, you know, with all that stuff. But I would say focus on something that you really love and something that you feel that you can grow in, and just, you know, if that makes you happy, then follow that and don't give up. You know, I mean, I've been doing this for 30, 40 years now, and I never for one moment thought about giving up. I took about 10 years off to when my son was born to be a good father to him, and you know, that was the most gratifying thing in my life. But I never knew. I mean, I always knew that I was going to get back to writing and singing and all of that stuff. So if you love it, keep doing it, and don't ever think that you can't do it. And try different things. You know, try different ways to get into it. You know, I wanted to be an actor, but I couldn't always be an actor. So what did I do? I found another way through writing or just being on the set as an extra. It didn't matter to me, but if you love it, you're gonna be ensconced and immersed in that milieu of what you love, and find
Wow.
people that have a like mind, you know, that you can collaborate, commiserate when things aren't going well, that you can be friends with and bond with, that are going to be supportive and have the same kind of outlook as you.
Oh, yeah. People are going to probably take People are definitely going to take something away from that. That's an awesome word of advice to people. I spoke to another musician, and I said the same question, and they said, "Don't."
I
I'm
would
like,
never
okay.
say that. I would, I would never
He said,
deter
"Don't."
anybody.
Yeah, no. Okay, this is great. A wonderful, enjoyable interview. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Roland, for the interview. So we're going to end the stream, everyone.
Chris, it's been awesome. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm
You're welcome.
really, really, really pleased to meet you, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you. So
It's
thank
fun
you so
talking to you. Okay, wait right there. I'm going to talk to you for a bit. Okay, everyone. Rollin Jewett out.
Internet girl, it must have been fate. It was just like a date. I felt connected to my internet girl. Love was in bloom in our cozy chat room. Friends tell me the web is not the place to find true love, but I don't listen to a word they say. Juliet connected on the net, love would find a way. Internet girl, you're my whole world. I love to chat with my internet girl. I say what I mean when I'm typing on the screen. It's just so easy with my internet girl. There's no need for lies, 'cause I can't see her eyes. People say it's just a way to avoid intimacy, but I don't listen to their love is love regardless of our proximity. What's so wrong with that? Artificial intelligence is better than no intelligence at all. You're my whole world. You're my whole world. Or at least until I can't afford the subscription. I'll never meet with my internet girl. Photos on file, she has a nice smile. But I don't need a reality girl, 'cause when we're online, everything is just fine. I fell in love with a wonderful girl, one that I met on the internet. I'll always be with my internet girl, happy and free in our internet world. Internet girl, you're my whole world. Internet girl.